Hi, I'm Harumi Rose, and yes, I'm trying one of these again. Since you clicked the thumbnail, then you know what this is about, but I thought I'd start by giving you some context. So, what happened? Well, I seem to have inadvertently predicted big chunks of the DLC. Like, I wasn't trying to, but some of the theories I put out for the base game ended up doing that anyway. And okay, what is this video now then? This one is kind of a short review. A review of my theories, the ones that are pertinent to the subject, a review of the lore hunting process itself, which led me to those conclusions to begin with, and hopefully, I don't know, maybe a way for getting the word out there. Okay, but why though? Basically because I was recommended to by other lore hunters. Like, this seems to be kind of a unique position that I find myself in right now. I've asked around, and apparently nobody else managed to predict the DLC in that way, and I didn't know what to do with that. And they told me maybe I should make a video like this one, and here we are. And this position isn't just apparently unique, like, it's also kind of a best case scenario for a lore hunter, right? Like, the way things usually go is for lore hunters to explain things after the fact, and then trying to convince people of the validity of their conclusions without any extra input from the games. Nothing ever gets confirmed, but this is different. Like, I was just trying to explain the base game. Then the DLC came out saying, yep, you were kind of right about that stuff you said before. No theories ever get confirmed, but some of mine kinda did. Right? Like, I had theories confirmed by From Software. I don't know what to do with that. Okay, so, this is what this video is. Me talking about that stuff. And before we get on with it, I just wanna make a couple of quick notes regarding what this video isn't. First, this is not meant to be an argument from authority. Just because I got some things right, that doesn't mean I automatically got everything right. You should still apply critical thinking to everything I say. And the opinions expressed here, they're not final either. Like, not only I haven't come out with my Shadow of the Erdtree specific lore video yet, or videos, but this is always a work in progress. And the opinions expressed here might change in the future. Who knows? All right. Are we okay now? Can we get started? Me? Okay, so let's get started, shall we? So what exactly did I predict? Well, at the core of it, I predicted that Miquella was actually a bad guy who had abandoned Grace and was aiming for godhood in order to replace Marika. That he wasn't kidnapped, that he was actually using Mohg, and more specifically Mohg's blood, in order to ascend to another plane. And as a few bonuses, I also predicted he was going to perform a separation of body and soul. I predicted a connection between the serpent and the fell flame, and also Marika's one ring. That last one, about Marika, I think that might sound a little weird if you're new here, but we'll get to it. And yep, I think these have all been pretty much confirmed now, right? I think they have. And I think the two big ones are Mikila's literal and figurative fall from grace, and him not having been kidnapped. I don't really go to forums and stuff like that anymore. I post my videos on Reddit sometimes, but Reddit can be a little finicky sometimes. But some of my followers, they had previously told me that people out there were pretty resistant to these ideas. You know, that Mikila was a bad guy, that he didn't want anything to do with Grace itself, and that he wasn't kidnapped. And I get it, you know, I get it. Like, this response from the community, it's intentional. The devs, they wanted people to see Mikila in a certain light, right? He's portrayed as a holy child abducted by a predator, like a predator that literally looks like a predator. And he's said to care about Grace and the Golden Order, and he seems to be trying to please his dad and cure his sister. But then again, there were red flags already as well. Like, they gave you that impression. They wanted everybody to sympathize with Mikila like that. But they also left clues otherwise. Like, one big one that I think it's kind of overlooked, or at least it used to be, is that Caelid is a hellscape wasteland because of them, of Mikila and Malenia. They fucking nuked Caelid with a biohazard weapon of mass destruction. And there was the whole bit about compelling people's affection and the bewitching branches and stuff like that. That's a red flag for me. Okay, but then you get into the lore hunting, and then you start figuring out what's really happening behind the scenes, and it just clicks at some point, you know? And I can't really say if it was Mohg or Mikila that started clicking first. It's a process. You're looking at everything at once, and one little bit here changes how you think about another little bit over there. Then you figure out one big chunk here, and then that starts reframing how you think about everything around that big chunk. Like, there was the spirit in the consecrated snowfield. That spirit, like, it's the main reason, I think it's the main reason everybody was like, no, Mohg kidnapped Mikila, right? Like, that's explicitly stated by the game. The spirit in the snowfield explicitly says that Mohg had kidnapped Mikila. But all other evidence seemed to indicate otherwise. There was Malenia's southward march that didn't seem to make any sense in the context of the Shattering, since they weren't conquering anything or stealing anybody's great runes. and then you start making association. Car? And then you start making associations between Miquella and Blood, regardless of Mohg's involvement, coupled with that single shift in perspective of, oh, wait, if Mohg didn't kidnap Miquella, then that means yada yada yada. Then it's kind of like just one step after the other, with many dead ends along the way, of course, and then you kind of get to where I got, you know, like you pierce the veil, you see behind the facade that they had put up for Miquella. The ascension and the separation of body and soul, those definitely came later though. Like, in my first Miquella video, I had already figured out Miquella was going to replace Marika and replace Grace with something else. But the ascension into full godhood and the separation bit, I came about while making the second Miquella video, which was meant to explain how Miquella's plans unfolded on a more practical terms, the more nitty-gritty of it. And they were actually, like the ascension, the separation bits, they were actually a result of questions that I had been trying to answer since forever, but it took me a while to get there. The seeds for the separation stuff were in the spirit, fauna, and flora of the mountaintops. From there was a very convoluted, very complex corkboard style red string theory that, honestly, I'm sorry, you just kinda gotta watch that second video. Like, when I say it's convoluted, I mean it. It's convoluted. You're in for a ride now, mate. Like, they put so much effort in the lore of this game. Elden Ring is, gameplay-wise, Elden Ring is so much more approachable. And it feels, I don't know, somewhat light-hearted in comparison to Dark Souls and Bloodborne. It can kind of give the impression that the lore is also lightweight. But it's not. It is so intricate. It has so much attention to detail. It's beautiful, and I love it. And if you wanna know how I went from, hey, what's up with these ghost trees, to, oh my fucking god, Miquella's going to divide his body and soul in order to become a god, then yeah, I'm sorry. There's just too much impact into that explanation. You're just gonna have to watch that second video and listen to me talk about it for an hour and a half. There's diagrams. I've been told they help. And okay, so that's Miquella's fall from grace, the kidnapping, the ascension, the separation, and regarding the serpent and the fell flame and Marika's One Ring, these aren't directly associated with Miquella. The one about Marika I had previously mentioned in a video about the rise of Marika and the fall of the Glowmite Queen, and the one about Serpent I explained in my second Miquella video when explaining certain aspects of his plans when it came to Mohg's Accursed Blood. They both intersected during that explanation. The Serpent and the Fell Flame in Marika's One Ring. There weren't many clues regarding the Serpent, but once they I don't know, aligned properly, those few clues, then everything came together. Like, I had always had an interest in the so-called serpent god because there were hints of an alliance between the serpent and Marika. But the game never explicitly explained anything about that. Like, the alliance itself was hinted at, but not explicitly stated. But it was there, right? Like, this one is kind of easy to explain. It's descriptions regarding the serpent that you get from gladiator set items. They always mention like that the serpent's viewed as a traitor to the Earth Tree, and if you're in a position to betray somebody, you have to be in a position of an ally, right? You have to be an ally in order to betray them. Yeah, so then I started putting that together with a possible alliance between Marika and Blood, which came about from the bodies of the giants in the mountaintops. Then I started putting all that together with a shift both Poison and Blood would have gone through, where they both became associated with flames in some respect. And it kind of became clear that they both had helped Marika in that war against the fire giants, and that they both had gained this association with flames because of the Fel Flame. Again, there's a much more in-depth explanation for all that in my Miquella videos, but that's kind of the gist of it. And yeah, the DLC just pretty much confirmed that, like very explicitly confirmed that the connection between the serpent and the Fel Flame. It doesn't explain it, but I have provided you with an explanation already. Aha. Okay. And what about Marika's One Ring that I mentioned before? What is that, and how was that confirmed? Quote unquote confirmed. This one has bigger quotation marks by the DLC. Marika's One Ring would have been like her version of the Elden Ring before she usurped the Elden Ring proper from the Glowmite Queen. The Glowmite Queen had the Elden Ring with its many rings and many powers, and Marika's it only had one ring because it only had grace. And the standard 3-ring depiction of the Elden Ring can be seen in her statues in the lanes between, like it's behind her. And those statues would be the most up-to-date depiction, but in the Shadow Realm, her statues only show a single ring sitting behind her. So yeah, like few things come with a few pieces of information come with large red letters saying, yeah, this is that thing. Like, there's never anything too showy. The first theories that I mentioned just now, the confirmation for those ones was very, very showy, very dramatic. This one is very subtle, but it's there, right? The One Ring is there, and it fits the timeline that I had predicted. I gotta stop using that word, that I had explained in my theories before. So yeah, I think it's kind of confirmed. If you want to know about it, watch my videos, you'll see the timeline, but I'm actually going to expand a little bit on that. I'm going to expand a lot on that timeline on my upcoming Shadow of the Earth 3 videos, so yeah. Okay. I think that's that. I think I kind of feel like I'm rushing through it, but it's like I've never done a review of my theories before. Like, my theories are the review of my theories. Right? How do you explain a theory that was explained in a theory? I don't know. But that's that. These are the theories that I made and that were predictions and that were confirmed. Michaela Bad, Grace Snowgood, Michaela Godhood, Moog Not Kidnapper, Serpent and Fire Flame, and that side note, America's One Ring. Okay? The DLC also corroborates a number of other conclusions I've made, like that didn't actually need confirmation, I think, like the 2 moons of the Lands Between, which are referenced now by Relana's spell. I just now realized maybe I have never shown the 2 moons in video format. I mentioned it, but by the time the last two videos in my first series didn't have animations, screen capture. They were just static illustrations on the background, which includes Runny's video. So yeah, I've never shown the 2 moons. But yeah, the Lands Between has 2 moons, not 1. And now that is being mentioned by Relana, I need to show that. Side note, mental note. Show the moons on the next video. Okay. Okay. Most of the DLC lore seems to fit quite, I don't know, snugly with all of my theories for the most part. But as far as predictions go, I think that's it. Now, on the other side of being apparently right, there are some things I could be wrong about as well. Namely, I had theorized that Melina wasn't actually Marika's daughter, and that she was actually the Glow Knight Queen. And when I was playing the DLC, I think you know the moment I'm talking about, but there was that moment when I was like, oh shit, that's definitely something I'm gonna have to change now. But I'm not so sure anymore. Like, Mesmer's Kindling references what seems to explicitly be referencing Melina. But I'm not so sure anymore. In fact, I'm almost certain that I was right the first time around. Melina isn't Marika's daughter. She's the Glow Knight Queen. But like I said, I haven't come out with my DLC lore yet, so this opinion might change. I might have to change that theory. And even if I don't change it, you know, even if I end up sticking to it, I'm also predicting that this particular theory will remain as controversial as it has been. And I also had some theories regarding the Three Sisters' location in Caria Manor that Relana calls into question, and this bit went through the exact same process from, oh shit, I'm gonna have to change that, to, oh wait, maybe not, to, oh cool, maybe I was right after all. But again, we'll see. And like, I wasn't trying to find a way to justify those initial theories. These 2 theories regarding Melina and the Three Sisters. My first impression was, I am gonna have to change this. So I started lore hunting for the new explanation, for the new theories, to replace the old ones. And during that process, I ended up finding evidence to back me up instead of tear me down. Yay, I guess. we'll see where that goes. And lastly, one thing I do need to change is that I always thought of the Serpent God that existed physically in the lands between as an avatar to avatar. Avatar. As an avatar to an actual outer god, but apparently there's no outer god in that equation. It's just the serpent. And the rot poison blood cluster I had theorized will need some heavy retconning too. I'll give more details about that in my coming videos, but yeah, these two things will have to change. I'm pretty certain of it. And and of course, there are Radahn and Messmer, right? I did not predict. I did not predict Radahn coming back, or that Messmer was a thing that existed at all. Like, I don't think I was supposed to. I think those were actual twists that they had saved for the DLC. You know, everything else, the clues were there. I found them. These two, I don't think so. But who knows? Hindsight is fucking awesome. Awesome. And maybe we'll find some clues in retrospect, right? And yeah, I think that's it for my theories. And now, regarding the process of lore hunting in and of itself, this isn't going to be a review. Like, I can't review lore hunting. I don't know, 10 out of 10. Done. No. This is going to be like some points regarding how I personally approach the process. There are many competent lore hunters out there, and we all have different approaches, but this is a glimpse into how I see it. Okay? Okay. So, first and foremost, the most important thing you need to keep in mind at all times is that the game lies to you. Wait, no, let me rephrase that. The game doesn't lie to you, but it will mislead you in every single chance it gets. Like, the information the game makes available to you comes from people and groups and ideologies that exist in universe. They all fall under one of the perspectives that exist in that world. And, you know, people lie. Or they spread lies thinking they're true. Like, if a character is a fervent adherent of the Golden Order, then they will tell you things they believe to be true from the perspective of the Golden Order, whether they're actually true or not. History as well. History is always told from someone's perspective. And sometimes these discrepancies are explicit, like Godfrey not actually being the first Elden Lord, and sometimes we have to hunt for them. That doesn't mean you have to get paranoid. You don't have to assume everything is a lie, just that they might be. You know, don't deny everything, but question everything. And along the same lines, not everything means something, but everything might. Don't hand wave things away as, oh, it's just a coincidence, or oh, it's just a bug, or anything like that. Sometimes things don't really mean anything, and sometimes seemingly inconsequential details are hiding a whole lot of lore behind them. And as a more like practical tip in this regard, I would tell you to take notes. Maybe not in your first playthrough, because the process of stopping to take notes can detract from your enjoyment of the game. But at least starting from your second playthrough, if you're interested in doing some lore hunting of your own, take notes. Like, you never know when that one little detail that you noticed 3 hours ago might become relevant. So if you're taking notes of all the little details you noticed, then you can reference back to them later. I personally, my memory sucks. If I don't take notes, I will forget stuff. I take notes. I think you should too. Okay, another big one. I, I think it's become one of my mottos, I guess. Outside sources of information aren't canon. If you're an old viewer, you've heard this before. Certainly, outside sources of information aren't canon. In my talks with other people, I have found that this is sometimes a controversial opinion, but things like content and possible sources of inspiration, they're just not canon, in my personal view. But I honestly believe all the answers are self-contained inside the games, also Soulsborne games. We don't need to go outside of the games to find the answers to our questions. And like, they're interesting, cut content, learning about what may have inspired the devs. It's interesting, and they can help bolster an already existing theory. But if you're using them in order to justify a theory, then I personally think you're on the wrong track there. Story trailers are a bit of an exception, but not really. They're like in-game cutscenes delivered outside the game. So yeah, story trailers, not necessarily outside sources of information. Especially now with like Elden Ring, like really changed that, because Elden Ring really sets its story trailers apart, because Elden Ring in particular went through the trouble of referencing the base game's story trailer in an item description. When they mentioned Malenia's Whisper to Radahn, that's from the trailer. That's from the trailer. We can talk about story trailers from other games, but Elden Ring specifically made its story trailers canon. Okay, but like going back to the other two, like cut content, for instance. Cut content, it was cut. It was just cut. Like, by definition, it became outside sources of information, because by definition it's no longer a part of the game. We don't know why they cut it. Maybe it was because of technical restrictions, maybe it just didn't make sense within the lore anymore. The point is, there's no way of knowing, so there's no way to trust them to fit the lore. And sources of inspiration are just that. Sources of inspiration. And that's just not how sources of inspiration work. Like, you can't just translate them directly into the game in order to explain its story. That's not how inspiration works. And again, I don't want to be grumpy. Again, this is just my personal opinion, my approach to it. But I hold to it. Outside source of information aren't canon. Say after me. Okay, moving on. Japanese takes precedence. And I'm sorry, I know that's kind of a bother, but they do. Like, From Software is a Japanese studio, Miyazaki and his team are all Japanese, the original documentation is in Japanese, and you don't really have to speak Japanese, like I don't. I'm not fluent in Japanese. My Japanese is very basic. My advantage is living in Japan and having a Japanese family. I can just ask people. But there's a lot of people out there that are explaining the translations and mistranslations from software games since forever. Some of them do a very good, very comprehensive job, and you can just find this information out there. But yeah, this point comes with two caveats. Like, first, Elden Ring in specific, complicates this point a little bit because of George R.R. Martin. But, like, there's no way of knowing what exactly he may have contributed. So that complicates things. Like, the stuff he contributed were originally in English, but all the rest of it was originally in Japanese. So you have to keep that in the back of your head, but since there's no way of separating those things, then Japanese still takes precedence, right? And the second caveat, like, Japanese isn't a magic bullet. I've seen over the years some theories that, like, they seem to kind of ignore in-game evidence because they don't fit the interpretation presented by those new translations. And, like, there's that first point I made, right? Like, okay, you got this new, better translation of an item description or a dialogue, but you still gotta be skeptical about it nonetheless. And, like, I'm going to say this in the most neutral way possible, but speaking the original language doesn't automatically make you good at analyzing the data, at doing the lore hunting bits. If you lurk Japanese forums, you see a lot of examples of that. And yeah, the translations, they're just a small part of the process, right? You still gotta go through all the rest of it. So yeah, Japanese takes precedence. If you're interested in lore hunting, you're probably gonna want to find sources of information that can give you the mistranslations and the better translations. But keep it in mind that, yeah, even with that new information available to you, there's still a whole lot of hunting left. Okay? Oh, yeah, like, one thing, I'm gonna mention this because of one person in specific, but not I'm a very nice person that I had to explain something to them that I didn't think I would have to, but since I did, then I'm going to mention it now as well. Like, not all of the lore is in item descriptions, right? Sometimes you just gotta look around a little bit. Yeah. Okay. So these are the more, I don't know, practical points, I think, regarding lore hunting and how I approach it. And 2 points that are more, I don't know, overarching would be don't compartmentalize the lore, and don't be afraid to second guess yourself. Like, sometimes you find theories that try to explain an isolated bit of the lore, but that don't seem to take into account all the rest of it. The whole of the lore is a single system. I know it's kind of an impossible goal, but ideally, I think we should always strive to make a single theory that encompasses everything. We do need to compartmentalize how we explain our theories, yes, but ideally, all of our theories should fit together as a single theory of everything. Like, it's kind of impossible, but that should be the goal. And yeah, like I said, the second point, it's second guess yourself, man. Like, sometimes we're wrong, and we just gotta be open to that possibility. You know, kill your babies. Not in a literal sense. Yeah, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't use that saying with this game. God damn it. Sometimes you think you got it, and then it's tempting to keep going in that direction, even when the game starts telling you that, hey, maybe you should reconsider that. But yeah, when the game starts telling you that, maybe then you should reconsider that. I've changed my mind about theories before. I've been proven wrong before. And so far, I have been able to course correct. Hopefully, I will continue to do so. And if I fail to, let me know. Please. I'm counting on you. Okay. Is that it now? I think that's it, right? I've spoken very hastily about the theories that I made, predicting the DLC, a little bit of what they entail and how I got there. I've spoken about the process of lore hunting. So yeah, I guess that's that. This is a weird video for me to make. Now that the video is technically over, I can confess that. Like I said it, right? I didn't know what to do about this. Oh my, I've been talking for that long. The background is gone. I have committed the first cardinal sin. Oh my god, but this is befitting, right? Okay, the video is over, I'm in the void, I can talk now. Yeah, like, I think it's cool. Like, I think it's true. I did predict a bunch of stuff. And I think it's cool that I did. And I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't know what to say. And, like, then I was recommended to do this. And I thought, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, right? And, but how? How do I talk about stuff? I don't know, but I did. I did my best. And yeah, like I said as well in the beginning, like maybe this is a chance to get some more eyes on my theories. Like, I've been doing this for years, many years now. My channel is old. Not as old as I am. I'm a very old person right now, by now. And I picked my reach a long time ago. Like, when I started making videos, I didn't even think anybody was going to watch my videos or agree with my theories. But some of you did, and I started making them because I liked the games and the lore just enthralled me, and I wanted to share, I wanted to share that. So yeah, I've been doing it with a passion for years, and I'll keep doing it regardless of whether I can increase my reach or not, my audience or not, or even if my audience goes down. And I'm glad for the people I've met along the way, even though I am terrible at keeping in touch with anybody. You can just ask my mother. She'll tell you that's true. And yeah, so I'll just keep doing this anyway. But the original point of it was to share my passion, in my ideas, in my vision of the game, of the stories. So getting more eyes on my theories would just be great, you know? If I could find more people to resonate with, that would just be great. And maybe this can help. I don't know. We'll see. In that regard, if you wanna help with that, maybe share this video. Or if you think this video is a bit too cringe or something, or just, you don't have to share the video, just mention to people, hey, there's a lore hunter over there that predicted the DLC. Maybe you should check them out. Okay. I guess that's that. Thank you, everybody who watched this. Thank you for sticking to the end. I like the idea of using this kind of avatar. I think it's cute, but I'm not good at making one. I don't know how to make one. That I would actually like to use or set up to make it more responsive or whatever. But thank you for watching me talk about this stuff. Thank you to all of my patrons. Yeah, they're in touch with the Shadow of the Erdtree theories that are ongoing. I think I kind of got a good grasp on it by now, but it's still ongoing. Like yesterday, I figured some new shit out that changes some of the stuff that I had already written down. But I'm almost there. And the Shadow of the Erdtree's videos are coming soon. Sooner, hopefully, rather than later. We'll see. And they will probably have diagrams again, if you're one of the people that are waiting. Yeah, the diagrams kind of make it more expedient, the process. And like rewatching my last Miquella video, I really think they help. Like, it's too much information in the game. I might even go back and make new diagram videos for my old Elden Ring theories, for all of my theories. Maybe make a single mega video with all of them together. We'll see. And yeah, so thank you, everybody. Stay safe, as always, please, everybody, do stay safe. And I'll see you around. Bye.